Welcome to the Recruitment Hackers Podcast, a show about innovations, technology, and leaders in the recruitment industry. Brought to you by TalkPush, the leading recruitment automation platform.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining today's fascinating debate. We're going to talk about psychometrics and the fact that they are up against a terrible challenge in 2025, which is there's generative AI, which is coming to play, which is, first of all, injecting the space with a bunch of new vendors that everybody can create a score for anything now. It's very easy. You just send a bunch of data to OpenAI, you get back a score, and you call that an assessment. And then on the candidate side, things are being disrupted by these same technologies as well, where candidates can consult a Gen AI to score straight A's on PhD level mathematics, even though they never graduated from kindergarten. So this is the problem in 2025. And this is a good time to ask ourselves and to ask you, talent acquisition professionals, could you take another look at your assessment toolkit? And is it time to do a little reboot? So to help us through this discussion, I invited four esteemed speakers on the topic. Dr. Shiran Danoch, from founder and CEO of Informed Decision. Hi, Shiran.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us from near Tel Aviv. Manon joining us from France. She is the new head of HR for Fabric. Hi, Manon.
Hi, Max. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you. And dialing in from the cold north in Minnesota, Zac Engler, who is the founder and CEO of, Bodhi AI. Did I say that right? Bodhi AI. Yes.
You got it.
Hi, Zac.
Yeah, -4 over here today. So thanks for having us. You're warming me up this morning, Max. I appreciate it.
You're in the Celsius or Fahrenheit?
Fahrenheit.
-4 Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is. That sounds bad.
It's bad. It hurts.
Okay. So the debate, really, the big question is, are psychometric assessments valuable today? And I've been hearing from people who are strong advocates, and I've been hearing people who are true believers. I've been hearing both sides, so it's confusing for me, and I'm sure for a lot of other people. So, Shiran, I think part of your business is helping your customers decide whether they've got the right thing or not, right? So maybe you can tell us how to add a little bit of nuance into this black and white scenario.
Yeah, definitely. I always say, like, you don't have to feel good or bad about something when you have data. And I think that's the missing piece for a lot of psychometric and assessment vendors today. They just don't have data to show their work, or is their tool predictive, or saves time, or enhances candidate experience. So I'm a psychometrician, so I'm coming to represent that this is a valid science that has hope, that has the ability to be predictive. But I'm also saying it's hard today. There is a lot of snake oil out there, and there are a lot of promises that are not being held up to. And I think it's, of course, the vendor's responsibility, but also the buyers, like the TA professional's responsibility to ask the right questions and to make sure that whatever they're using is based on valid data.
If you're buying food or medicine, you've got the FDA to check if it's legal. But if you're buying assessments, I mean, there's no central authority, right? Or am I talking to her?
That's too presumptuous. But yeah, that's a part of my mission. A part of my mission is to help companies make better decisions around what tools they should be using and how to continuously optimize their tools with data.
And Max, if I can jump in, one of the questions I actually had for Shiran, since she's arguably the expert on this with her background in education, there's this term that I came across in my research on all the psychometric validity and things like that. Is this term called predictive validity? Shiran, I'm wondering if you could explain to us what predictive validity is when it comes to psychometric evaluations.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to keep it simple. So predictive validity is when you compare the scores from your hiring process, whether it's an interview, a pre-hire assessment, or whatever you're using, and then you're comparing it to actual performance, you see that there is a positive correlation, meaning the higher the score, the better the performance, the longer the retention. So this is in a nutshell what predictive validity means.
So predictive validity really helps correlate what was taken in the assessment to the actual performance on the job. Is that right?
Exactly. And but there is a connection that this actually, what we're using actually predicts performance, retention, productivity, engagement, whatever. Different companies are interested in optimizing different things. Usually it will be like we want people who stay for long and they are performing and productive, but there could also be other measures that you want to optimize for.
That makes sense.
I met a customer a few weeks ago who told me who challenged the status quo by saying, why are we running psychometric assessments to hire people? This is for a customer that sells fried chicken. Why do we need to do psychometric assessments to hire people whose main job is going to be to cut the necks of 100 chicken every day? And so he did away with them. And this is just sort of a nasty illustration of a bigger point, which is our sort of psychometric, as in like personality, particularly personality tests. Do they have that predictive validity? Have you seen them to be to be able to predict job performance accurately in certain environments? Can you share some examples? Anybody, maybe Manon, where you see them being effective?
Yeah, so I would be on the opposite, or I didn't jump in yet, but I would say not all jobs should be assessed, or should be we should assess the personality test or the work preference, as I prefer to say, mainly because not all jobs need it. There are jobs, like you just said. I don't think that knowing the personality on very repetitive tasks, very automated, very by the book operational work, I don't think that the personality can give so much assessment or so much explanation, except if the person is actually able to follow procedure or hates it. And if they hate it, then they should not work there. But to me, there is no value. Whenever we should use, or we're using assessments, personality, work preference, that should be on more high-level roles where you need a lot of autonomy, you need a lot of collaboration, and that will give you an idea about how that person would fit in your environment, making sure that they can, connect with the rest of the people and or perform to the expectations, as we're going with Shiran and Zac about performance and analyzing that.
What are some environments where personality have demonstrated to be strongly correlated to job performance? Some examples come to mind from anyone here?
I have to jump in and say that generally I object the notion of personality assessment in hiring, because it has been proven multiple times that most personality measures, like we have like the biggest or most well-known theory in psychology is the big five. So you have like 5 traits that are the kind of reflect your entire personality, and like these measures are the most validated ones, the most researched ones, etc. And it shows that for all of those 5 personality traits, most of them do not predict job performance. Besides one, like in most contexts, it's completely agnostic to those personality traits. So I'll give an example, like an introvert, extrovert. Okay, one of these traits is an extrovert. You can see amongst Fortune 500 CEOs that you have 50-50. Okay, 50% are extroverts and introverts. Like intuitively, you would say, yeah, like a CEO needs to be an extrovert, right? They need to lead, like they need to inspire. But look at Bill Gates and look at I forgot his name. Meta's CEO Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg. Okay, like you don't, and they've actually looked at it. It's 50-50. So in many times we're kind of looking, I think it's easy to conceptualize people as introvert and extroverts and kind of put them in boxes, and like put them in types of people, like the MBTI does, like the DISC does. It takes people and turns them into types. But people are not types. People act on a continuum. And like Manon said in our previous discussion before the recording, with my friends, I can act in a certain way. At work, I can act in a different way. Does it mean that my personality changes? No. And that's why we're focusing, when we're working with clients, on skills, on motivations, on behaviors, and that's also because there is scientific proof that personality, in most times, in most contexts, it doesn't predict. The one personality trait that does across multiple contexts is conscientiousness. And conscientiousness is basically being dedicated, being a very hard worker. That's basically what it means. Like really putting all of yourself in whatever you're doing, being very responsible, and that intuitively also predicts success, also career success.
As a DISC certified trainer, Manon, do you want an opportunity to give a defense to personality?
It's not even a defense, because I kind of agree with a lot of what you say. The only thing is that I don't think they're personality tests first. I do think they're reading keys to how you prefer to work, which is very different. You work with certain people who prefer a certain type, and that makes sense, and you know how to, it gives you reading key or understanding about how to connect with them, how to influence or being influenced, or being more self-aware about your bias or your ways of working that might be hard for others to work with. First and second,
developmental tool, for sure. You're right. Like if you and I and Zac and Max were working together now as a team, if I would have your DISC assessments before recording this, probably I would know how to navigate this better and kind of maybe not annoy you as much, right? I would have known that. In the context of working together and in development, both MBTI and DISC and the others are great. In the context of predicting performance in hiring, there is a lot of research that shows that they do not have any predictive capability.
Well, that's also the manager being able to adapt their management style to the person they're onboarding and make them more efficient. So to me, it's not the golden rule. It's not because someone falls on that assessment that I should hire them, but it can be, and specifically, and maybe that's where I'm a little bit close to that debate, or out of that debate, is more to me for leadership teams, for integrating someone to a team and how to manage them on someone who will have a lot of autonomy, a lot of deliveries, and that you need to know how you're going to manage them, how they're going to be integrated with your team. And that's where I think it makes a lot of sense to actually, the last validation is that there is the what, there is the how. I know I want to work with that person, but I want to make sure that I'm actually able to manage that person, that they will actually fit with my team. Or the opposite, I'm actually looking for someone who's really different to bring a little bit more innovation, to bring a little bit more something else, and then it gives you a mapping. But the assessment itself, without knowing who you are or how you are and how to compare that assessment of that person that you want to hire, is useless.
And I think
that
that's where you've both now touched on, I think, a really important element that maybe the listeners would appreciate is you just both went through a whole lot of nuance with how you would analyze the assessment, or whether this assessment has predictive validity or not, and whether or not that's important or not. And the analogy that I would give is that all these assessments, whether it's Myers-Briggs or DISC or StrengthsFinder, whatever it may be, they're all a bit antiquated at this point. They're all like using a map, right? Maps are great. And in fact, most maps that you have of the world would be fantastic for you at a macro level. But as soon as you start zooming in on what are the actual elements of job performance, what are the actual skills that would be necessary for that person to be successful in the role, rather than do you prefer how they work with you, I think are the key elements that AI could do a much better job bringing to the forefront and then scaling exponentially as, if assessments are the map, then AI could be a GPS, right? How do you hone in even more sharply onto the key elements that are going to make this person a fantastic add to your team? How do you run more benchmarking within your internal teams with minimal disruption to the work as well, right? I think we've all tried to roll out assessments at an organization and run into the challenge of chasing down the marketing CEO to finish their assessment so you can benchmark against their team, or chasing down all the accountants to make sure that they get their assessments done so you can do some like honest benchmarking, because without the benchmarking, again, the antiquated model is not going to be as good. I think that's where that AI complement could come in and really streamline everything for everybody.
Now, is there consensus in this room of opinionated leaders that that people should feel empowered to build their own assessments? Is there do we agree with that statement that somebody who's listening today should be like, you know what, let me just build my own? I know, Zach, you're leaning towards yes on that one.
I think if you can prove the scientific validity and the predictive validity of it, then sure, you could go about that. But without having that type of backing, I would want somebody like Shiran to double check the work, of course, right? Hey, are we creating a system here that's inherently biased, right? Because as we saw with Amazon, they launched an assessment tool that ended up screening out tons of female candidates who would have otherwise been a great fit for the role, because they fed the system with a bunch of biased data. We've since learned from that mistake, but it's mistakes like that let you get a picture of the bias that could be happening in an organization. Whereas when you keep everything within an individual's mind or with a group of people, you can't necessarily uncover the bias the same way. So to answer your question, Max, yes, I think there are opportunities for folks to be more flexible in the assessments that they deliver or employ. But again, that without predictive validity, what's the point, right? So you do have to have an element of science backing what you're doing. And I think that's where generative AI can do wonders for people, because it can do 80% of the grunt work to get you down the road on refining how you're analyzing people's skill sets. Then you can have experts come in and follow up and validate, are there any uncovered bias here? Are there any anything that we're screening for that could be looked at as discriminatory, or perhaps doesn't really add value for either the candidate experience or the hiring manager experience, which is another key thing I think we're all touching on but not talking about. AI has also flooded everybody's inbox with hundreds of candidates. And one of the biggest struggles is figuring out now, okay, everybody can customize their resume for a job. Everybody can automatically generate a cover letter. And now they can answer questions live in an interview with the help of AI. Where do we draw the line and start deploying assessments like Shiran and Manon have talked about, where it's something that can actually add value to the candidate experience. It's something that can actually help you work through this massive volume of people, and it doesn't get in the way of your business. So I think that's where there's that window.
To address what you just mentioned, Zach, some people are bringing the candidates back into the office for the interview when they used to do them remotely. Manon, you're starting your new role in a company where you're hiring a lot of engineers who will have no difficulty getting help from the LLMs. What are you going to do? Are you going to lock them in a room and make sure that they, you know, and a room with no Wi-Fi connection?
No. Well, definitely not. And again, that's the what and the how. We don't want to put people in difficulty, and they need to understand the difficulty that they're going to be in if they don't know how to do their job. Plus, we have probation period, which are made for this, so we double check. However, I don't think a personality test would tell me if it's a good engineer or not. It would only tell me how they rather work. So even with with a personality test, it wouldn't help me. With no Wi-Fi, if they cheat, I will say it very fast on the job. Second thing is that, sorry, I'm going over, but I'm really worried for engineers. ChatGPT does a very good job coding. I've got friends who build companies based on ChatGPT. Then, of course, then you need to level up your engineers. So that's a different conversation and what they can bring. But coding is not a skill that is only limited to human anymore. And that's cool. It opens a lot of perspectives. But I want good learners. I don't want good engineers right now.
Yeah, it's like you're going to be asking them to submit their prompts instead of submitting their cover letter.
Well, plus we're seeing same as with assessments, psychological or personality assessments, you need an expert to read it through. So even if ChatGPT gives you a code, or if an assessment gives you a personality type, then I think just that is nothing. You also need the human to be able to read. If you give me a code given by ChatGPT, I have no clue if it's good or not. You can put a lot of errors in it. I have no clue. If you give me an assessment, then I can help you to read through and what it means about you, what are your preferences, how to overcome them, what are your strengths and how to make them better, or what are your pain points and how to work on it. So AI is cool. And that's where, Zach, we're talking about scalability. Yes, my perspective of assessments is not scalable, but I also think it should not be, because it's not an information that is good enough. But having that few people joining a team that is already working well or things like that with the help of an expert, then you can bring a lot of value from assessments.
Thanks, Manon. And I think we said we would try to keep it within half an hour. So I'm going to give the final word to Shiran on that question that I left hanging for everybody, which is, should people be building their own assessment toolkit instead of going to a vendor? I purposely make that question stupid so that so that we can get a nuanced answer. Yeah, it does sound like things are going to change a lot in 2025 from what I'm hearing from Manon and Zac. So Shiran, how do the practitioners out there prepare for this wind of change?
I do want to answer your question first. My answer is hell no. Like, you can see what people are interview, like the questions that people ask in interviews. Do you like working in a team? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Why do you want to work for us? Like, really basic questions that candidates can cheat. And that's just the start of it. Building insightful questions is an expertise. There is a science to how you go about it. So no, not anyone can do it. And even today, me as a psychometrician, as someone that builds assessment for a living, I used AI to help me, but it still gives me a lot of stupid questions, because garbage in, garbage out, that's what they're trained on. So no, I don't think neither people that don't have the expertise need to build it on their own, or at least if they do it, then like Zac said, validate it or get some kind of a stamp for it, or at least feedback if you're going about it. So no, you shouldn't do it. For me, AI is a huge opportunity. The way that I see it, with time, the combination of AI with experts that will train the AI on asking more insightful and better questions than to actually be a psychometrician type of AI, yeah, we will be able to create more customized, contextualized assessments at scale. And it wouldn't require working with someone like me on a long-term project. You will have technology, or we will have technology that will be able to streamline these processes. So I'm excited for the future, but I do also want to be realistic and say most of the tech vendors out there are not subject matter experts. That they are people that are excited, that they want to solve a problem. They're either tech people or business people. That's okay, as long as they have the right people in their team to solve the problem in an ethical and a very professional way. And again, as a buyer, that's your responsibility to ask those hard questions. But I'm excited. Like, that's the positive note that I'm ending with.
All right. I won't be able to summarize all of it, but in closing, I hope this opened a lot of nuance. We're going to put the links of everybody in their contact information in the show's notes, and you're welcome to reach out to Zac, Manon, and Shiran for more. What I got from this conversation is, personality assessments, maybe not for recruiting, but maybe for the final stage of recruiting to prepare the onboarding as the next step. They've got an ability to warm the room and prepare the person for a new environment. What I also got is a word of caution. Just because somebody says they're an expert doesn't mean they are, and a lot of vendors are offering system assessments that are not validated. And you can validate them yourself, or you can ask an expert to do it, or the vendor can offer you a validation study, but don't always take their word for it. And it's going to be a scary world out there in 2025. But I think it'll be fun for all participants with a bit of creativity. So thanks for your thoughts, everybody, and we'll hope to see you again for another discussion.
Awesome.
Thanks
so
for
much,
having
Max.
me.
Thanks, Max. Thanks, Zac and Shiran as well.